Hello and welcome. You have made it to day 5. Congratulations on what you have accomplished in the past 4 days. And you have one more day to go. And I first, like I've done every video and every day, is to thank you for the most precious commodity that you have, and that's your time. And you shared your time with me. But I'd also like to congratulate you on giving yourself time to do this and to work through this. And I hope you take a few minutes to just feel that level of fulfillment that you've done with all of this, because just we don't often we go too fast, we don't take a breath. So I want you to okay, I've made it through days 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now you have the last day. Now this one I'm going to tell you up front. The challenge that I have for you today, and that's part of today's challenge, is to think about and write down 3 things that have really made an impact on you in this course. And there's a lot of different things we covered, and so I wanted to take time with you to go over how far you've come and to also jog some of the memory and some of the feelings and thoughts that you've had, to be able to share what you've gotten from this course or from the 5-day challenge. Now, this is all today about coming full circle. So on day 1, we started up here, right, to think about your guiding words and also your action words of today. And then when we went through the action words of today, we then went through the process of thinking about the urgent versus important, and really recognizing that a lot of what we do is more on the urgent side and not as much the important side. That we have been trained actually a lot to do more of the urgent things and check more things off, as opposed to taking time for what we want on the important side. And I'm going to touch on these in a few moments again. And then on day 3, that decision tree, that 1-page process that I go through in my mind, and it only takes a minute or 2 once you get used to it. So when an opportunity comes up, to separate out the emotion versus logic, right? And for those who haven't read the book, Thinking Fast and Slow, Daniel Kahneman does an amazing job. It's definitely a thicker, denser book. But the idea is, and many of you already know this, that we think with our emotions first and then act, and we'll make a decision based on our emotions and then use logic to back up the decision that we're making. And this 1-page decision tree process allows you to acknowledge the opportunity, but to remind you of your guiding words. Remember, because you've thought of these, your 3 words. Then let that emotional piece come out, what you're going to gain from that opportunity, because you wouldn't really be thinking about the opportunity unless you thought you'd get something out of it, right? So being able to put that down. Then the kicker comes when you have to really toss back and forth. What are you going to give up? What are you going to sacrifice in order to take advantage of that opportunity? Because if you remember, on day 1, I was sharing with you, I've heard so much of, I need another hour in the day, I'm struggling with all these things, I'm trying to juggle everything. Then why the heck would you take something else on to just add another ball in the air, or just to feel like you're even spread thinner than you already are? Well, we do. And so using this process enables you to kind of step back and take a look. Then we come full circle, and what I asked yesterday, how do you define living intentionally? What does that mean to you? And then the next part is, what things can you do? What actions can you take to bring that intentionality into your daily life? And I shared with you some of the words of wisdom of the awesome and amazing guests I have on my upcoming podcast, Living Intentionally with Amy Smellers, because that's the intent of my podcast, is to have every week a 20 to 25 minute reminder of what it can mean to live intentionally and what other people do to bring it into their daily lives. And so I, along with you, can learn from them and take tips and habits and, oh, I never thought of it that way, or, oh, that's really cool, to be able to pull that together. So with this 5-day challenge, that's why I'm asking you to share with us the top 3 things you've taken away from this, because we covered so many different things and everyone has different pieces that they take away. And honestly, I have put this together because of things I'd heard from some of you and from other conversations, and I'd love to have that feedback, because if I haven't met your expectations of this, I'd like to know and to help you with that if there's something that I haven't covered or something that wasn't clear. And as I share with my students that I teach at the graduate level, I don't know unless you tell me, or even say to my kids and husband, we need to have this communication loop. So I'd love to hear of the 3 things that you took from the course or from the challenge. The other part too, and I've had some questions around, some of these are a little more difficult than others, right? And one particularly, the urgent versus important, and shared a bit of that in the Facebook group, that while we may have our here's what's important versus what other people think is urgent, that you may get in trouble, or it's a lot harder to say no than it really is. And I shared the story of one of my clients who's been going through this, and so she's been using the process of the conversation of, because she has this already, she has her guiding words, she has her words of today, and she takes this time, as I've suggested, in the morning before all the other life chaos happens, to sit with herself, to think, okay, here, I'm reminding myself my words, and also this is what I'd like to accomplish today, and kind of plan out a little bit. Okay, what's on my plate today? What's on fire? What's not? And looking at it from that perspective. And so she was having a challenge with her boss actually at work, who would come, and I know I experienced this when I worked in the corporate world, and many of you may have experienced this as well, of, oh, we just need this done today. Which you get more than 1 or 2 of those, and all of a sudden your day has become someone else's, and you have lost control of the most precious thing you have, and that's your time. And so she's learned to say, in a very nice professional way, okay, what I think I heard you ask me that you needed was this. And so she clarifies and then lets that person speak again, so she has an idea if she's hit it on target or not. And then she'll push back and say, got it? You need this? Well, right now I have this, 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 and this on my plate. So what would you like me to either take off, push to someone else, delegate, to make room for this new thing that you'd like me to do? And I'll say, and this, that's one of those results may not be typical, but she's said about 60 to 70% of what her boss asks her to do, her boss, when asked that question, says, oh, well, actually, no, do those other things first, and then we'll get to this. So by having the conversation, opening up that communication loop, she's able to have a better relationship actually with her boss and hold on to things that are important to her. So while this may not work exactly for everyone, there's different ways to do it, but it's an example. But you have to be mentally prepared for that. And that's the other thing I wanted to get to as part of this challenge, and to really point out, is so many of us, we spend money to exercise, and we spend money to eat different ways, or all those different types of initiatives, but we don't often spend money on our mental pieces and our mental togetherness. And one of the things I'd love for you to think about, by giving yourself the time over the past 5 days, how did that make you feel? Were you able to bring more enjoyment into what you did? Were you clear, a little more focused on what you were doing? Did you go into things with greater awareness because you've gone through these different cycles? And regardless if you had the urgent versus important or your decision tree, because there may not have been an opportunity come up your way, although probably within the past 5 days there may have been, you at least have your guiding words and your words of today, and using that on a daily basis. And we have so many different pieces of technology available to us, like apps and productivity planners and all those sorts of things. And they're definitely useful and can be used at appropriate times or in different places. But the challenge is if we are not mentally there, if we don't know, having intentions, having direction, right? If we don't know the direction that we're going in, how are we going to be able to plan our days? How do we know if we're really being productive? How do we know if we're moving toward or away from something? So I wanted to take another moment to just say thank you so much for being part of this 5-day challenge. And I have two special announcements for you. One, I am putting together an ebook with all of this information because I know while some of you are probably more organized than I am in your inbox and you have folders created and things of that sort, getting the different emails and the worksheets and the downloads can be harder to put together or keep together. So I am putting together an ebook with the information, the worksheets, and links to the video. So you have them all in one place. You can download, you can save it, print it out, you're all set. The second bonus, I'm really excited, is again in that email that I send you with the ebook, is I'm going to be holding a live webinar with you, only for people in this group. And one of the things I will say, because there are people here in the United States, in Canada, Europe, and Australia who are part of this challenge, which is awesome, I am holding the live webinar, but I'm also going to record it. So in case you can't make it or something comes up, and in some cases you may be sleeping, depending on the time I'm able to hold the webinar, it'll be available for replay for 5 days afterwards, so you'll be able to have that for you. And in that webinar, I'm going to be there to answer your questions. And so have conversation. And as always, there's a few things that you can't just squeeze everything in the challenge, because I want to keep these videos shorter and give you pieces of information to work with and then build on. But having that webinar, which will be about 60 minutes long, will enable us to have a conversation. So I can share a bit more of the science behind this and other techniques that I use and some other case studies as well, and a little more in depth with those, and answer your questions and for you to share your comments. So thank you so much again. I really appreciate your time, your contribution on Facebook and YouTube, and it's been a great experience for me, and I hope you've enjoyed the journey. And a couple things, don't forget to share your 3 things that impacted you from this 5-day challenge in the Facebook group. And most importantly, don't forget to start and end every day with a smile.